Hello and welcome to this webinar on the role of agricultural research in achieving food security in Africa. I'm Esther Awuni. Thank you for joining us today. According to Olam, as of 2021, Nigeria's national wheat production was estimated at 60,000 metric tons, while total consumption was much higher at almost 5 million metric tons. According to the company, ensuring the long-term viability of the wheat value chain in Nigeria will involve extensive research and the development of high-yielding local wheat varieties. For the next 50 minutes or so, my panelists and I will be discussing the importance of agricultural research as an effective approach to meeting Nigeria's food security needs. And for this webinar, we'll be focusing on the wheat value chain in Nigeria. Well, joining me for this discussion today are Ashish Pandey. He's a managing director of Crown Flour Mill. Also joining us today is Dr. Kachala Mala, project lead researcher and principal research officer at the Lake Chad Research Institute. Also joining me today is Dr. Filippo Bassi. He's a project scientist and senior scientist at the International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry areas. Thank you, gentlemen, for making the time out to join us today.
Thank you.
Hello.
Well, let's get right to it. Mr. Ashish, I would like to start with you. Today we're focusing on agricultural research, the importance of agricultural research in ensuring food security on the African continent. But I'd like us to also just go straight to the wheat value chain in Nigeria, which is going to be our focal point today, the importance of research in that sector. But I'd like you to start by just giving us a sense of the wheat value chain in Nigeria. Talk to us about the opportunities, talk to us about the challenges within the value chain, production versus consumption, etc.
Thank you, Esther. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Look, in Nigeria, if you really see as you said, the numbers in terms of production or for the wheat in local wheat in Nigeria is close to about 60,000 to 100,000 metric tons. Numbers could vary depending on various indicators and various different research agencies. But the bigger problem is the amount of land under cultivation is close to about 50,000, 45,000, 50,000 hectares. The productivity or the yield, if you really understand, is close to about 1.5 hectares per 1.5 metric tons per hectare. Now the reason is why is the yield low? The yield is low because, as we all understand, Nigeria is a tropical or a subtropical kind of a climate. And wheat is a more of a temperate crop. Now, if you really see that the seed varieties which Nigeria does use over a period of time or a number of years is more of, I would say, for temperate climate, and therefore we will not get the right kind of yield. Now, yield is not the only reason. The second reason, or the bigger reason over here, is the fact is the farming techniques which people do or farmers do use. Now, wheat relatively, if you see for a country like Nigeria, is a new crop. I mean, the country has been growing sorghum, millets, corn, soya over a period of time. In many years, they have experience. They have learned through the mistakes, etc., and finally evolved. But in case of wheat, that has been the case. And therefore much is to be needed to be done on that side also. Now, we at Olam believe that to get the right amount of productivity for local wheat in Nigeria, one needs to work on both the elements. Number one being that you need to have the right kind of wheat seed. Now, for having the right kind of seed, one needs to invest in a long-term research, because as you understand, making or developing a seed is not a 1 year or 2 year program. It requires 4 to 5 years of consistent work being done. A lot of trial errors are there. And finally, one does arrive at the best fit seed for the country. And second, side by side, we also need to work on the training and development of the farmers, where we train the farmers with the farming techniques, etc., get the best from the world also to the local farmers here in Nigeria. We, as Olam, do it. At the same point of time, we as a Flour Mill Association of Nigeria, as FMAN, also help in this process. But in this case, what we have done is we said that, okay, while Olam is a global major in case of agriculture, why should we not have a dedicated project only for Nigeria, where we get the best scientists and the best thinking minds, both from locally and internationally, and put them together, put some investments behind it for the next 7 to 8 years or 10 years kind of a window, and go through the journey, travel that journey over a period of time. And that's our intent, really. How do we bridge the gap between, as you rightly said, about a 5 million metric ton requirement and close to about 60 to 100,000 metric tons locally? There's a huge gap, and that cannot simply be bridged with the same seed varieties. And therefore, the need for research, therefore the need of investment, therefore the need of getting the right kind of technical inputs from globally, and working with the local scientists and local researchers in Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pandey. Dr. Filippo, let me come to you, speaking about research. Ashish just talked about investments, research, but I like to focus on the research aspect of things. I'd like you to also give us some insight on the wheat research in Africa. Talk to us about the kind of work that is done, that you do. Talk to us about how the kind of innovation we've seen in terms of how we're improving wheat seed varieties in Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you today and my colleagues of this beautiful project that Olam has philanthropically agreed to finance and asked me to design, by the way. So I have a big responsibility on that one. So wheat research in Africa, Africa, the continent, has so many differences and both social, geographical, market-wise, and so forth. So if you look at North Africa, of course, wheat is a reality since millennia. East Africa, countries like Ethiopia, have been cultivating wheat since before more than 3,000 years ago. So it's really now we know that South Africa as well is a major producer of wheat, and we see these changes happening where many African countries realize that what they've started cultivating historically might not be necessarily the only crop they can cultivate today. Research has changed dramatically in the 60s. Wheat varieties were very late, and as Ashish was saying, they're very susceptible to the climate. So if you did not have a cool or cold winter, you were not supposed to be able to cultivate wheat. That has changed. Researchers like myself, actually much better than me in the past, have been able to change the wheat, what we call phenology, the ability of the plant to flower, to produce seeds. Now we have varieties that do not need these cool temperatures at all. They're actually able, for instance, here in Morocco, I grow them during summer, where the lowest temperature is maybe 35 degrees here in the mountains in Morocco. So wheat no longer needs that cool temperature. Of course, if you have that cool temperature, you get higher yields, but that's no longer a strict requirement. So we would not have been able to do this interview 40 years ago because we would not have been able to actually grow the wheat in Nigeria, in many parts of Africa. Two countries I'm very familiar with, of course, are today Mauritania and Senegal. They started a project with us 6 years ago under the Swedish Research Council funding. And basically, I don't know how well you know the Senegal River, but it's an area where rice is the major and almost only crop that is cultivated. And never before Senegal had thought of the idea of growing wheat. There's been a little bit of research, and we were able to go back and find some nice article from the 30s of French researchers indicating that wheat cannot be cultivated in Senegal. And that's no longer the case. In 2017, we were bestowed the Olam Prize for Innovation in Food Security. And since then, we have now more than 2,000 farmers that have started cultivation of wheat along the Senegal River. And we have policymakers that are supporting this. And of course, this is a similar story with Nigeria as well. The FAO declares today that Nigeria has about 70,000 hectares of wheat. People that live in Nigeria, I know maybe the country better, suspect that this number is too low, it's about double that. But I let Dr. Kachala, that knows it better, maybe correct me there. But the country also has almost 2 million hectares of rice. Now we can see the similarities with what we're discussing about in Senegal. In Senegal, we have put wheat in addition to rice in a rotation system. So the rice continues to be cultivated, but we have developed varieties that were really designed for that specific area. And this is the key of this project. We want to design varieties that are specific for Nigeria. So we want them to fit in that rotation where you cultivate rice and then you cultivate in what is the dry season. So this is what I want to mention now, that really wheat research in Africa is so diverse, and each country will need to develop a specific strain of wheat, but of other crops, of course. I work for an international organization. It is called ICARDA. We are under umbrella of what is called One CGIAR. We have many research institutes around the world that work in different crops. For instance, we work with Africa Rice, right, that is based in West Africa. And so now we're looking at it together, us from the side of wheat, then from the side of rice, trying to develop solutions, and especially to move solutions between countries. What we have discovered in Senegal, what we have discovered in Sudan, probably can apply quite well to Nigeria. This is one way of moving it around. I will stop here, but just saying that working with African researchers and trying to develop together solutions for their own country, it's an outstanding pleasure, and there's so much learning and things we can do together. And it's incredible how much can be done once you empower the researcher with a project like this one, with the ability to really do strategic initiative. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thank you very much, Dr. Bacha. Dr. Kachala, let me circle to you now. I'd like you to also talk to us about the work that you do at the Lake Chad Research Institute. And we know that the Lake Chad region has been experiencing adverse effects of climate change, desertification, etc. Talk to us about how you still carry on with this research. Talk to us about funding. Talk to us about the capacity of the institute, and if you also work with perhaps international partners or other institutes that have a similar weather conditions or soil types as the Lake Chad region.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. In terms of wheat research in Nigeria, a lot has been done and a lot needs to be done. Lake Chad Research Institute being the mandate institute for the genetic improvement of wheat in the whole of this country. So that's a very big challenge. Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people. So for us to have this genetic mandate on a crop is a huge challenge. But despite all these challenges, the Institute actually recorded a tremendous successes in the area of wheat research by releasing high throughput varieties of wheat for our farmers. But the key challenge now, there are two key challenges now faced in the area of wheat production. We have the technological challenges, and we also have the socio-economic challenges. Technological challenges include the rate of adoption. We have released a variety, but for farmers to adopt the best practices of those varieties is very low. So that leads to the low yield in the farmer's field. And also the socio-economic aspect of it is in the area of inputs like fertilizers, like improved seeds, like other agrochemicals, which is very low, which also bedevil with production in Nigeria. So the Institute actually adopted a strategy whereby wheat research could be reached to the door of a farmer through dissemination of improved information to the farmers. Whatever you do, if you don't make it in such a way that the farmers understand it, it will also be a kind of a wasted effort. So we embark on participatory research where we engage all the farmers throughout our activities. And also we also engage the farmers in a pre-season training before the onset of the season. And also we engage the farmers mid-season training and so on and so forth. So this has actually gives us a lot of successes in the area of wheat research and wheat production. Wheat is a temperate crop. So in Nigeria, wheat can be grown under the irrigated as well under the rain-fed condition, but the substantial production is under the irrigated. And you know how what it costs. Anything that being done under the irrigation is capital intensive. So that is why the farmers could not able to actually adhere strictly to the best agronomic practices, like in the area of inputs, because inputs are costly, so they cannot actually provide the required quantity or the quality of the input for wheat production. And wheat is a high input crop. It requires a lot of nitrogen. It requires a lot of management practices. So these are the challenges that actually bedevils wheat production in Nigeria. The other challenge now as an institute is in the area of climate change. Being the temperate crop, it requires a very cool temperature to thrive. And due to climate change now, the Harmattan period doesn't last more than 3 months. So for us as an institute, we sat down and work is ongoing right now for us to develop a early maturing variety. Those varieties that can actually escape the harsh temperature along the growing season. So the institute is actually doing a lot, and it has done a lot, and is still doing a lot in the area of release of early maturing wheat varieties for our farmers. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mala, before I move on to Ashish, I'd like to just ask you one more question. Talk to us about the trends in how the wheat varieties in the research that you do have evolved over the years, if they have evolved over the years, and factors that are contributing to change in this wheat, in the quality, if you will, perhaps climate factors, etc. It might not be the case, but I'm just curious to know if there's been a change or an evolve. If the wheat seeds have evolved in the last couple of years?
It is time consuming. As such, we have been collaborating with CIMIT, we have been collaborating with ICADA, and also other national research institutes. Development of those varieties actually takes more than 5, 6, or up to 7, 8 years. But with the effort of our scientists in the other international CGs, so they will develop those varieties, and we receive them as an international germplasm, and then we test them in our environment and look at the adaptability of those varieties, of those international nurseries. So we advance those that are adaptable to our environment, and we release them. So it is actually time consuming, but with the collaboration we have with ICADA, with the collaboration we have with CIMIT and other research institutes, both local and international. So the work is actually much, much easier for us to do. But the key aspect now in the area of research, we need to adopt what we call the speed breeding, whereby release of genotypes can be achieved within a very short period of time. Using the conventional method of breeding, it will take a longer period of time for us to develop a single variety. So it's time consuming, It's capital intensive. It's a lot. There are a lot of things that are involved. So, but with our collaboration with ICADA, things have been very much easier for us to do, and we have been releasing. And we also intend to release 3 more durum for the first time. For the first time, we are releasing durum wheat variety in Nigeria. All the varieties we have released so far, all of them are bread wheat. So, we have 2 types of wheat. We have the bread wheat and also we have the durum wheat. So durum wheat is a hard wheat. So these are the products of semolina, pasta, or the so-called noodles. So all are from the durum wheat. So Nigeria is now, for the first time, Nigeria is releasing a durum, high throughput durum wheat varieties with the effort of ICADA, with the effort of Dr. Philip Obasi. So that's it's a plus for Nigerian farmers, it's a plus for the industry, and it's a plus for our institute, the Lekki Research Institute. Thank you.
Ashish, let me circle back to you. I'd like us to now focus on this ambitious project that Olam is embarking on. I'm talking about the Seed for the Future project. As you know, wheat consumption in Nigeria far outweighs what we produce as a country. So talk to us about this project. Why does Olam feel the need to embark on this project to help support the wheat value chain and, of course, looking to come up with better wheat seed varieties? Talk to us about this project.
Yeah, hi. So basically, as I said earlier, there's a huge gap between the local wheat produced, as I said, is close to about 100,000 metric tons, and the demand, which is close to about 5.5 million metric tons. Now, this huge gap cannot be bridged in one day. But the reason why we want to get into developing the local wheat value chain in Nigeria is this is also a big drainer to the foreign exchange reserve for the country. Now, if you really see, on our side, we know that this is going to be a long journey. And this is the main reason why we said that if it's the cheapest, bread is the cheapest carbohydrate in the country, and therefore the Nigerians rely a lot on wheat or wheat-based products, for example, bread, semolina, pasta, and therefore it's a step in the right direction for us to invest in the right seed varieties, where over a period of time, maybe in the next decade or so, we'll be able to shift the size of production to a level which is, where the reliance on the foreign wheat for a country like Nigeria is reduced. That is the genesis of this program. And that's the key for us as a company as to how we can work with the stakeholders, how we can work with the scientists, and what all we can bring expertise from international research organizations. Also, how can we partner with the local research organizations over here, transferring the best practices from the world to the local scientists, and therefore, getting onto this vision of ours. That's the reason for us.
Ashish, as Mr. Mala said earlier, developing a right type of seed, I suppose, for a region like Nigeria could take years, to get that one right seed. How confident are you? I mean, what makes you so confident, optimistic that, embarking on this 10-year project journey will culminate in getting the right seed, the right wheat seed for Nigeria's region?
I think the intent is there. I think the first thing is, when you say in terms of being confident, first of all, having the right kind of intent. So we have the intent. And second, I would say, is that to have the right people or the right resources to pursue that intent. That's number two, which we have. So we've got Philip Obasi, we've got LCRI, working with us very closely on this project. And third is to be there in the long run. So we've been in Nigeria for the last 30 years or so. Olam as a company, we have been consistent. We have been sticking close to the ground over here. We have built various businesses in the country. We have a great rice program and rice cultivation in a country like Nigeria, which we have built over the years. So we are very confident. We have the right mix, we have the right attitude, we have the right desire and the right resources, I would say.
Now, for this project, female farmers in the wheat belt region of Nigeria have been selected to be key drivers of this project. Talk to us why you decided that female farmers will be the best candidates to help drive this project too.
Look, for me, and personally, and the way I feel it and how the company really feels, women are the bedrock of any family. They are the nurturers, they are the caregivers, they are the providers in a very different way, not maybe from the economic point of view, but from, ensuring the family is really in place, looking at the health, looking at the long-term vision for the family. So they are the bedrock. So I said, in a situation like this, why should we not go and empower these people? Because once we do that, it also is creating a dual income capability in the family. Normally, the men's will be working out somewhere else. They will be doing their small jobs, whatever they do, and the women will be at home. And if we do empower these women, we'll be creating, I would say, will be simply, doubling, I would say, the household income. And also at the same point of time, if we do empower and also educate and skill these women on the long run, it also means that their children or the next generation will be much more skilled farmers if they decide to pursue this profession. Because when you teach a woman, you teach a whole generation, because they are the ones who are going to be the creators of the next, and also the nurturing of the children and imparting the skills to them. And when they see their mother as successful, and when they see their mother as really doing well for herself and also for the family, it creates a huge positive ripple. And that's happened across countries, that has happened across centuries. If you really see, whichever country, whichever society has empowered women, it has really step changed the entire civilization. And that's the genesis for me.
Well, Dr. Bassey, let me come to you, and I want to take you back to just the general state of agricultural research on the African continent. Often for decades we keep talking about food security on the African continent, and this has been exacerbated by the impact of climate change. And analysts continue to tell us that this could get worse. So obviously, research and development on seeds that can withstand, adverse weather conditions is very important if Africa is to achieve food security. So talk to us about what the missing links are. What are the challenges? Why isn't Africa strong on the R&D front? Why isn't Africa moving aggressively on coming up with seeds that can withstand adverse weather conditions, that can help the continent achieve food security?
Well, okay. First of all, I would say that Africa is moving in that direction. I mean, if you look closely, and that's probably the biggest issue, you have to look very closely to see it. But lucky for me, I'm in an advantage seat where I work very closely with scientists like Achala, but all over Africa, actually. And when you look closely, they are releasing these super varieties. They are doing this research, because we heard now Armatani in Nigeria is only 3 months old, 3 months long. Can you imagine how much research is needed for a farmer to put the seed on the ground, grow it, harvest it, and probably sell it in 3 months' time? Imagine what can you do in your normal life in 3 months' time, You don't even finish, a semester of your school. I don't know. What can you do in 3 months' time? The research has been able to develop a variety that goes from the day that is planted to the day that is finished in just 3 months. And do that withstanding temperature well above 35 degrees. If this is not climate change adaptation, what is, right? Now, there are missing linkages. And by the way, this is just one example. I mean, I know that this is done in so many crops. In maize, we know that. We know that in rice, there are a lot of research, sorghum. I mean, really, I take part of an organization called One CGR. We were completely hidden and unseen. We were doing this work on the ground. We had the Nobel Peace Prize winner in our midst, Norman Borlaug. And for the past 50 years, we have been working nose on the ground, adapting agriculture in developing countries to climate change in all its form, which is many, by the way. Let's not open that door, because drought, heat are the most known, but there's locust moving, there's insect, there's pests. Until just this year, COP26, Bill Gates, leader of Microsoft and especially of the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, came up to the podium and committed $350 million just for this year to our organization. All of a sudden, donors around the world realized what we are doing, thanks to this one person that put us on the stage. So one missing linkage for the African research, for me, is exactly that one. If you can, and this is what Olam did with the Olam Prize for me, by the way, and for my team. In Senegal, we were doing the work, but we were invisible. The moment that we won the prize, and Olam made a communication about it, finally, farmers all over Africa became aware of it and have received requests from farmers all over. I mean, now our varieties are in Benin, are in Togo, in Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Of course, now they're in Nigeria, just because all of a sudden, something that we were already doing became known to people. So thank you very much also to CNBC for giving us this opportunity, because that knowledge is the key, is one missing linkage. The other one is probably a linkage that that this project is trying to achieve. So one is to be known, right? But the other one is really this linkage between the day you make this incredible discovery. Let's talk about this 3 months long Harmattan variety. And now you have to push it into farmers' hands. A lot of people think that's, obvious. It's like, I made a phone, I buy a phone. And not really. You made a phone, now you have to make millions of phones, right? Before people can buy them. And this is exactly the story of a variety. And this is a missing linkage that we had. So in this specific new vision that Olam has decided to support with Lake Chad, we are trying to go village by village and work in each village with the farmers, with the women specifically, to really multiply and push through this variety. So we are not selling phones, we are teaching each village how to make the phone, which is a slightly different approach, I think. One that has this complexity, but we hope it will make a long term.
Well said. Dr. Bassel, let me come to you. Do you agree with what Dr. Mala has said? Also, I'd like you to also speak to a country-to-country collaboration when it comes to research. I know what is going on now is a partnership between the private sector and, of course, this research institute and yourself also working on this project. I'd like you to speak to the importance of the scale of country-to-country research that we're seeing on the continent, perhaps also the exchange of technology and data.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I mean, I fully agree with what Mala was saying, but country-to-country exchange, it's just more than that technology, right? It's knowledge. Kachala was with me here in Morocco, I think it was 4 years ago, before COVID and everything, and he was in our fields learning on how we do research. And he brought that information back, and that's how he was able to identify those varieties. Then there's movement of seeds, right? My organization like mine, do their best to really make seed freely available to everybody. I mean, we invest a lot of funds to develop these seeds, and then we distribute it for free. These are non-GM seeds, they're not genetically modified. This is just pure hard work research in the field that identifies these strains. We then distribute it for free. Every year, I distribute it to 52 countries. 52, not 5. Okay, just imagine the scale of those activities. And add on top of that, the many other centers like mine that do the same job in other crops. So we are really trying to bring together the country at the level of knowledge. We are trying to bring together the country at the level of research. Now, if I'm thinking a country like Nigeria, I heard people compare it somewhat to Egypt, that is one of the biggest wheat producers in the world. I would maybe question that because Egypt has its own unique system. I would compare it much more to what happens along the Senegal River. I would compare it much more to what happened to Sudan, because or the Sudanese savannas, lowlands of Ethiopia, because the climates are much more similar. And I think that also is a job that as an international organization we're trying to do, link those countries that have similar climatic conditions. However, one thing that Nigeria could learn from it is one technology that is called, I want to go into the detail, but it's called raised bed technology, which is a nice way of planting under irrigation that reduce your water consumption by more than half and still get the same yield. So that is a technology that we are trying now to test in Nigeria, for instance, with Kachala, as part of this new initiative. So there are learning all over, right? There's a beautiful initiative that unfortunately has not been maybe making the strides that we want. It's called AAA, Advancing African Agriculture. It's led by the Minister of Agriculture of Morocco and includes the Minister of Agriculture of all Africa. So this initiative that we are doing fits under this AAA, and we are making sure that the connection is made. And so if more initiative like this happens, then the more we will be able to move this type of informations across, because of course, the first step is to have a project under which you can then transfer these informations. And to have a project, the one linkage, I assure you, is not scientist to scientist. There's nothing more enjoyable than work as a research team. It's incredible how much more you can do. It is really funding. And so the case of Olam stepping forward, I hope will not be an exception. I think the private companies have a big role to play in the future of African agriculture. And I hope to see it, more and more often happening, because there are great investments in Nigeria done at the central level, but sometimes this smaller project, really research-driven, can really add a very big brick to the system.
All right, well said. Mr. Ashish, let me come back to you. Let's talk about when this project is going to kick off. And also, I'd like to know if the government is involved in any capacity, if you're also consulting with the government as you work with these research institutes.
Yes. So in terms of the program kickoff, it's already started. As we said, it's already kicked off as we speak from last month. On working with various stakeholders, as I said, we are very open to work with everybody as us as a company, Olam, and also as Flour Mill Association of Nigeria. We work with the government, we work with CBN, we work with Ministry of Agric, we work with LCRI, we work with all the institutions and Farmers Association of Nigeria. We are very open to work with any organization or any stakeholder which it will help us in terms of accelerating the local wheat production in Nigeria. So that's our intent, and that's our goal.
Okay, Dr. Mala, let's talk about the role of the private sector having that better handshake with the government when it comes to research and development. I know that obviously the government does do a lot, but should we see the private sector taking more of a bigger role when it comes to research and development? Because many times, if we're putting things into context here, we know that many African countries just coming out of the pandemic, a bit cash straps, their competing needs on, annual fiscal budgets, etc. Do you think that perhaps now would be a good time for the private sector to step up even better?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. We cannot just leave government alone to champion the cause of research in any country. Private sector needs to come in, and then they need to play a greater role in the area of research. Studies have shown in the United Nations, 10% of earnings of any private organization are channeled into research. So if we can replicate this in Africa, if we can replicate this in Nigeria, so I think the research endeavors will be actually a very great thing for us. But you see, coming in of Olam in the area of wheat research is also a kind of a way forward for wheat research and development in Nigeria. So the private sector, we are calling on other private sectors, the end users, the flour millers of Nigeria, all the relevant stakeholders in the area of wheat research and development to actually push research to a greater height. And this is how we can achieve self-sufficiency in wheat production in Nigeria. As you know, Nigeria is less than 10% self-sufficiency in wheat production. So a lot needs to be done in the area for us at least achieve 50% self-sufficiency in 3 to 4 years to come. So private sector needs to come in, looking at the global pandemic. The funding is not much.
Okay, Ashish, let me quickly circle back to you while I'll circle back to Dr. Mala when we're done. Talk to us about the expected I know I've asked you this question before, but what do you imagine the wheat value chain in Nigeria could look like in the course of this project? I'm tempted to say 10 years from now, but 10 years is a long time, and I know that a lot will happen between now and then. But what are you hoping in terms of the current policies that are on the ground supporting the sector? What is your growth trajectory for this for the sector as you progress with this research over the next 10 years?
Yeah. So see, the government also is very supportive, right? And the stakeholders are very supportive on this, on driving the agriculture in Nigeria. And I believe they also want to, in a very serious way, and they have been supportive in terms of by way of funds, etc. And what on the agriculture, overall agriculture, scope in Nigeria. I would say in terms of sizing, look, at this point of time, I would say we are in the research stage. Okay, at the research stage, when you are just trying to develop the right seed varieties, it will be at least 4 to 5 years before we get these seeds for any commercial usage per se. And then there is a test also after that, just to see in terms of how the efficacy is. What will it really impact in the next couple of years? I would not say in the next 2 to 3 years you will expect any miracles per se, but I would say in the next 5 to 6 years, at least it would be at least 2.5 times of the current production. Safely, I can say that number. In the next 10 years, I could say if everything goes out right, it could be at least 5 times of the current numbers, and that's not a big number to really go after. But still, it's a large number from where we are. If somebody says in the next 10 years, it could be 5 times, it's also a big number. It will not happen on its own. It's not going to happen in the current avatar, in the current form. As I said, it needs the research, it needs the development, and that's why we are here.
Okay, Dr. Bassi, speaking to Dr. Mala earlier, talking about how the private sector, and he did agree that the private sector does need to, step up even better and stronger. But in your opinion, do you think that perhaps the private sector should be incentivized, because these projects cost a lot of money? As you know, Olam is committing about $300 million over the next 10 years on these projects. I'm not sure many companies can commit that amount, but do you think that perhaps there are ways that the private sector can be incentivized by the government to embark on more R&D across sectors in the agricultural value chain?
Well, as I said, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did invest $350 million in our research across the board. In this case, Olam is 350 million naira, which is a bit less, but it still is a very important commitment. And it's not so much about how much is committed, but when and where. Because sometimes, the central federal governments of Nigeria, I'm not sure of the amount, but I know the investment in the wheat sector is very substantial. I think we talk about billions naira exactly. The number is not aware to me, but I know it's high. So obviously, when you have such a big investment by the central government, then having really this brick put in the right place can really put the old tower back into its best direction. Yes, I do agree that private company needs to be incentivized to invest in this type of research. In the case of crown flour milling of Nigeria, it is a philanthropic investment, But they are aware that if national wheat production in Nigeria goes up, then they will become more competitive in their own market. Because of course, purchasing grains locally would be more environmental friendly and less costly than importing it from abroad, like it is happening today. So there is somewhat an incentive that is put in place, but of course it needs a long-term vision, and not everybody has the capacity or the ability to have that long-term. So there is a hope in some countries, private companies that invest in research, in public research or non-profit research specifically, they do get a complete discount or severe discount on their tax, annual tax. I do hope to see a similar system also to happen in all countries, not just in some. I mean, I'm most aware about Europe and the US and Canada, but I'm not sure what is the situation in Nigeria per se. I know that in other countries it is not the case. So that would definitely be a strategic thing that I believe would be acceptably easy for governments to do if climate change is something that really touches all of us. Then I think that's one easy way to unlock funding. The other one, of course, it's agricultural research is a little bit slow, right? You go from 0 to something in 10 years. That typically is 2 to 3 elections periods for a government. So it's not always the most sexy investment because it doesn't give very fast turnaround time. So that's also a role that maybe our politician needs to take to understand that that long-term investment is needed, even though will be somebody 10 years down the road that will profit from it. Still, also important to have centralized funding from the government.
Thank you, Dr. Bassi. Dr. Mala, good to have you back. I'd like you to just finish your thoughts on your response earlier. Also, I was also asking Dr. Bassi what I asked you, but this time I asked him if the private sector, if the government can incentivize the private sector to also, step up better. We know that obviously when private companies make investments in their sectors, it makes them more competitive, especially when they invest in research and development, but it does cost a lot of money. So in your opinion, do you think that the private sector should also be incentivized?
Yeah. Actually, funding of research by private sector needs to be developed because research is all about funding. If there's no funding, there's no research. So that is why we are actually calling on all the relevant stakeholders to step in and also to develop the area of funding, like Crown Flour Mill or Olam Nigeria have come in with support of wheat production, because by doing so, it will actually augment the local production. Local wheat production will actually be increased from a zero level to an appreciable number of percentage. So this is a very welcome idea. It's a very very welcome for us as a research system to actually to augment our research system in the country.
Talk to us about your forecast. So what you imagine the wheat industry of the future would look like in Nigeria. Do you see Nigeria actually sometime in the future achieving a full domestic production where we're able to produce enough wheat, for domestic consumption, and also even become an exporter of the commodity?
We have started changing the narrative of wheat production in Nigeria by adoption of new advances in technologies. So Nigeria is actually, we are optimistic that the country will achieve at least 50 to 60% self-sufficiency in a very few years to come, because looking at the way we adopted a participatory research, initially the breeders actually release a variety and they will just keep the variety on the shelf. Maybe the farmers may not even utilize it. So by adoption of this participatory research, whereby the farmers are being carried along right from the inception of the project up to the end. So this will also guide them in the best agronomic practices. So by adoption of all these changes, we are actually in the course to achieve self-sufficiency and even by exporting the commodity to our neighboring countries.
All right, Dr. Bassel, let me come to you. As you know, of course, we're still trying to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and there's so many elements to it. Food security is one of them. How optimistic are you, excuse me, that Africa going forward can achieve full food security? I mean, just thinking about the challenges in the Lake Chad region, I know that there's research going on and all of that, to try to get a better seedlings, not just for wheat, for other commodities like rice. But are you optimistic that Africa can come together, I mean, with the grants, funding, and all of that, and perhaps better cooperation among countries to achieve food security?
To be honest with you, I am very optimistic, but that's my nature. Maybe I see the research. All over being really, really good. I mean, when you think that inside the research station we are getting 6-7 tons per hectare, and in the farmers' field we are down to 1.5 to 2 tons, it means that the research is ready for the future. We just need to transfer that to the farmers, and that's really what a participatory approach is meant to do, is a peer-to-peer exchange with farmers to make sure that you carry them along. And that's probably, the fault of maybe some of our older scientific approach, where, really scientists were in their own sphere and farmers were in their own sphere, and rarely we were crossing. Now we are completely bridging and bringing down this silly wall and really trying to work in farmers' field with farmers. And that hopefully will bring forth a new type of innovation. Now, when you talk about food security, to be honest with you, I don't know. Because if you look at climate change, there are areas of Africa that will be cooler and will get more rain. And that's actually a positive thing. But there are lots of areas of Africa that will get much drier, much warmer, which is, of course, a very negative thing. So I'm not sure the food security per se is our main strategy. What I would really like to see is poverty reduction, right? If we can actually ensure that the rural people, the farmers, have produced enough to really generate an income, to send the kids to school, to buy the food that they need, then the world as a whole is food secure. So this is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but my personal vision, if I have to decide between giving one bag more of seed of grain to a farmer or $100 bill, I hope they will get $100 bill, so they will also buy a fish and a tomato and some milk and so forth. So I'm really hoping that food security will be achieved through a nutrition security through income, and that's really why we are so excited about some of the activities that we do. Because when we talk about women, we don't talk about women, period. We talk about village-based enterprises, where the word enterprises means business. It means that these women not only do something that is very important for their community by scaling up technologies, but they actually generate income in the process, not just for themselves, but for the whole community. So this is really what we are trying to do here. Now, it looks small because we are approaching it village by village. The project itself will work with 10 villages as a starting point, and is much smaller than when you think to coming from the top with a whole country approach. But I think if we can change the life of 10 villages, then we can change the life of 100, then of 1,000, then of 1,000,000. And so this is really a bottom-up approach, trying to work with the people. And if we can achieve that, I think that's where food security for Africa will come from. And of course, Africa is unique, and each country is unique, and each part of a country is unique. And that's why developing something that is really target, really work with the people there, I think that's where the solution is, rather than just a blanket from the top.
Well, Dr. Mala, just some closing thoughts from you. We have less than 2 minutes left. Just your thoughts on what it would take to achieve food security on the continent. In just a minute, please.
We are optimistic, like just rightly said by Dr. Plipo. Food insecurity will actually achieve in a very few time. There are so much challenges of insecurity in Nigeria, climate change and other things. But once you achieve something, once you actually increase, augment the livelihood of the farmers, you have also achieved food insecurity. So we are optimistic, we are hopeful that we'll achieve that in a very few time.
Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there today. Thank you so much for talking to us today. My guests today have been Ashish Pandey, Managing Director, Crown Flour Mill, Dr. Kachala Mala, Project Lead Researcher and Principal Research Officer at the Lake Chad Research Institute. And also joining us today has been Dr. Filippo Bassi. He's a project scientist and senior scientist at the International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry areas. Today we have been looking at agricultural research as an effective approach for meeting Nigeria's food security needs using Olam's Seed for the Future wheat seed trial project as our focus for today's webinar. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Esther Awuni. Bye for now.